Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm East Coast Pete. Welcome to another segment of my show, Mid Rock Crisis. Today we're going to talk about somebody that needs no introduction. Obviously, everybody knows who John Lydon is. We'll talk about him anyway. So, pre Pistols, pre punk, John was a quick learner. He passed his O levels and got into public college, a big step up from parochial school in London in the 60s. He even got into reading Shakespeare. Macbeth had a dark nastiness that appealed to him. He couldn't always follow the dry medieval prose, but when he saw the meter, the time signature, if you will, began to make sense. And other students wondered why their reading wasn't updated, modernized with present day language, but John learned something. You can't change a classical work to fit into another era without ruining the meter and thus ruining the piece. And it was the same with punk rock. You can't live out a 70s punk rock environment today, now that we're in the next century. It's not valid now, and it wouldn't connect with anything around it. It's done. Do more and it will not mean what it used to mean. It wouldn't spread like it did. Out with the old, in with the new, or in with a question mark. Now applies to punk rock. Some would say, good riddance. John Lydon, also known as Johnny Rotten, was born in 1956. He's an English singer of Irish descent, songwriter and musician. He is best known for fronting the Sex Pistols for 3 years. Only 3 years. From 75 to 78. He also fronted Public Image Ltd, PIL, from 78 to 93 and again in 2009. Malcolm McLaren, who managed the Pistols, asked Lydon to be the lead vocalist, certainly not for musical talent, but for his rebellious image and fashion sense. The band caused nationwide uproar with songs like God Save the Queen and Anarchy in the UK. The media unwittingly fueled the fire, and Lydon's band did more to change the face of rock music industry than anyone, with the possible exception of Elvis. And I'm sure John wouldn't want to be compared to the King. Sort of like his jester in his court, maybe. I don't know. You tell me. After the Pistols disbanded, Lydon organized his own band, PIL, a post-punk group. In the 80s, he was up to be awarded an MBE, as he was now seen as a national treasure, but he did not accept. He's the son of a working class immigrant family from Ireland. His childhood was spent in a 2-room Victorian flat in North London. He had 3 younger brothers. The area they lived in was very poor. He spent summers in Ireland with relatives, but he was ridiculed for his English accent. Thanks, Ireland. He was very shy and nervous as a kid, and he hated the parochial school he attended. At age 7, he fell to spiral meningitis and spent a year in hospital. It caused memory loss and other dire symptoms. He was left with permanent spinal curvature, somewhat of a hunchback. He had a long convalescence and had to relearn many basic functions. At around age 15, he had had enough of bullying, he fought back with pupils and teachers. He used his natural intelligence to fight using words. He wore his straight hair long down his back, but when his father commented, he cut it off and dyed it green. How's that now, Dad? So Hawkwind, Captain Beefheart, Alice Cooper, the Stooges, these were part of his prized record collection. He met John Ritchie at Hackney College. That's the future Sid Vicious, named after a pet hamster with a mean bite. The guys went to pubs to drink, but opted for reggae and gay clubs where you could be yourself and no one bothered you. Except maybe the hamsters with sharp teeth. Much has been made of Lydon and his pals regularly hanging out at Malcolm McLaren's fetish clothing shop Sex. The shop changed names so many times. McLaren had returned from a brief stint traveling with the New York Dolls. He became a promoter of a new band with Steve Jones, Glenn Matlock, and Paul Cook that he called the Sex Pistols. Kind of like free advertising for the store. Lydon's inexpertly cropped hair was now bright orange, and he had this torn Pink Floyd concert t-shirt that he wore with the eyes scratched out and "I hate" scrawled above the name. After tunelessly singing to Alice Cooper's "I'm 18" on the jukebox, Lydon was chosen as the Sex Pistols frontman. The lineup didn't last long. Lydon objected to Glenn Maddox's middle-class background and attitude. Lydon managed to oust Matlock and bring in Ritchie as bassist. Ritchie could barely play, but he had the right look. Pale, emaciated, spike-haired, ripped clothes, and a permanent sneer. Sid Vicious' well-publicized decline due to drugs was even more than the Sex Pistols could deal with. In '78, Sid's drugged-out, I don't care attitude upstaged even Johnny Rotten. As far as the followers were concerned, Sid was something of a sacrificial lamb. John liked the chaos, but was as frustrated musically as the other band members, who could barely wait to get away from Sid. And they had had enough of John as well. Even if their one album discography was a world-altering moment, even if a large number of record stores refused to stock it because of its title, bollocks. Notoriety propelled it to the #1 album in the UK. And here are the songs. 1. Holidays in the Sun. Now I Got a Reason. The Berlin Wall. 2. Liar. Bodies, not liar. UK version has Liar 4th. 3. No Feelings Except for Myself. 4. God Save the Queen. No Future. No future for you. 5. Problems. And the problem is you. 6. 17. I'm a lazy sort. 7. Anarchy in the UK. And that's the best cut. That's what I think anyway. 8. Bodies. Bodies is number 2 to Anarchy. It's about submission. Like the Kinks, I just want to be with you all of the time. Of course, I'm dressed with clothespins, safety pins holding my shirt together. I still want to be with you. 9, pretty vacant. Now, the Ramones were like black and white, and the Pistols were pink, green, and yellow. Yuck. 10, New York. And Johnny does roll his R's. 11, EMI. Unlimited edition. And there's comments about the record industry. Now, Julian Temple's satirical The Great Rock and Roll Swindle with Jones, Cook, and Sid. Johnny wanted no part of it. He thought manager McLaren was too controlling. He didn't really understand the music, what Lydon was trying to do. Lydon was more forthcoming with The Filth and the Fury. It's a documentary released in the year 2000. In 1986, the film Sid and Nancy portrayed the music and the decline of the Romeo and Juliet of the punk movement. Lydon published an autobiography, Rotten, No Irish, No Blacks, No Dogs, in 1994. It reveals the truth and not the bollocks, and also, surprisingly, John Lydon is a nice person. In his own way, PIL, also known as Public Image Limited, was a post-punk band formed in '79. Jay Wobble on bass, ex-Clash guitarist Keith Levine, and sometimes Martin Atkins on drums, with John as vocalist. The single This Is Not a Love Song charted at number 5 in the UK in 1983. There have been several regroupings of PIL with different lineups featuring members of punk bands of the past. In 1997, Lydon released a solo album called Psycho's Path. He wrote and played and sang everything. Here are the songs. 1, Grave Ride. It's not a real world anyway. 2, Dog. All religions are the devil's pact. 3, Psychopath. I don't dislike this, but it's just not as exciting as the Sex Pistols. 4, Sun. You'd want it cutting edge, but everyone ages. 5, Another Way. It's not really angry. It's over it. 6, Dis-Ho. And this is dance music. 7, Take Me. Disco punk pop equals new wave. 8, A No and a Yes. 9, Stump. 10, Armies. 11, Open Up. 12, Grave Ride, and that's a Moby mix. 13, Sun, that's a left field mix. Psychopath, that's also a left field mix. And then Stump as a Danny Saber mix. And I guess that's what we got now, danceable punk music. Well, it's always been danceable. What about slam dancing? That's a form of dance music, right? Well, just want to say, I'm glad you missed that flight, John. Talking about Pan Am Flight 103, scheduled to be on that 2006. You didn't get on. It's a good thing too, huh? Well, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inducted the Sex Pistols, who occasionally reunite for one-offs. There's plenty of biography and autobiography material out there about this time from 76 to 78 that had such an amazing effect upon music. It really was the beginning of a new chapter of what we know as rock and roll. John wouldn't call it rock and roll, it's just rock. Thanks for being with me on Mid-Rock Crisis. Maybe a few more Mid-Rock Crisis, then we're going to change over to a new format. Everybody take good care. Be well.